Max, see, you're slick, and I appreciate that.
You can't support that with the evidence.
I thought I was done with stuff like this. I can't believe what I just heard.
Let's get back to being serious for a second.
You're just deaf when you want to be deaf.
Well, as usual, you're wrong, Stephen A. Smith.
You will make an argument 1 minute based on what you read, other times based on the eyeball test.
I don't want to hear broken clock is right twice a day. Today! Damn it! The clock is right.
The American people will not be disappointed. I can't wait for this because sometimes I feel like I work with two politicians, and I mean that with love. Next Tuesday is Election Day, so First Take getting in the spirit. Tune in as Max and Stephen A. go head-to-head on the major issues in the sports world, and you'll be able to judge the debate. So please don't miss First Take's election special next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, a quarterback controversy in Dallas could be brewing as Tony Romo inches closer to being able to play, and Bryant is impressed with what he's seeing from Romo. Quote, he was good. His passes looked like a little missile. He's looking damn good. I'm pretty sure he's just trying to ease himself in, get his mind right, all that stuff. He's been working. I'll give him that. He lost some weight. I thought I saw a couple of abs on him. Gotta love that comment. They say you can't serve two quarterbacks, we'll say, for this situation. And we know Dez wants the ball. Will Kane now with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Always good to see you. You look very nice.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank
you.
I like
starting out with a compliment.
Yes, but I want to...
Finally got the jacket and the shirt right.
Don't you, let me tell you something.
Okay.
I was listening. I don't
just button this part right
Just
here.
focus on me.
What, are you going to the
Just
club?
focus on me.
Okay.
Going to the club.
Let me just say
Wait, I'm
this.
gonna actually
That was hot. The way this show started,
Yeah.
that was hot. And if there's any risk of me appearing like I'm sort of here to get under Stephen A's skin, Stephen A won that debate, Max. I mean, he slaughtered you.
Absurd.
I mean, do you want to see stars collide, or do you want to see stars align? That's a good line, Stephen A. That's a really good line, Max.
This does not bode well for your argument, but go ahead.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Your powers of analysis.
When
go
I
ahead.
need your, I appreciate it, but when I need your approval, I will let you know.
I knew, you know what, that was such a predictable retort coming from you. I knew it was going to happen. You can't accept a compliment even when it's deserved.
Right.
I think everything you say is predictable, but it's okay.
Okay, enough of this
I still respect the hell out of you. Go ahead.
Stephen A., I want to start with you. You just heard Dez basically saying that Romo's throwing missiles. Do you think he should be saying this when Dak is currently a starting quarterback?
I do not. I don't agree with that at all, simply because of the way Dak is flowing right now. I understand why Dez is saying it, because obviously the best years of his career have been with Tony Romo throwing him the ball. That's predictable. We understand that. But at the same time, Tony Romo hasn't played all year long. Dak has led this team to 6 consecutive victories. Obviously, it's a dicey situation for all involved to be in, for Dak Prescott to be in, for Tony Romo to be in, watching this young stud on the come up when he's 36 years old and has had about 3 or 4 back injuries over the last several years. It's a dicey situation for Jerry Jones because that's his adopted son. It's a dicey situation for Stephen Jones because he knows that Daddy Jones loves the adopted son that is Romo. It's not a comfortable situation for everybody to be in, and you opening your mouth highlighting how Tony Romo is looking may galvanize those Romo supporters and create somewhat of an uncomfortable environment for a young rookie in Dak Prescott who's done nothing to deserve anything but the greatest level of support that you could possibly muster simply because of the way that he has performed this year. So again, it's not a crime. It's not something that Dez Bryant should be excoriated for, but it is something that has you scratching your head and saying to yourself, I understand why you did it, because Tony Romo's your man, and you obviously look good when Tony Romo is on the field for you because he's proven that to you. But right now, the way things are flowing, why would you put this young kid, Dak Prescott, in that kind of situation, understanding how those words coming from you could be interpreted or misinterpreted? It wasn't cruel, but I just think it was unnecessary.
No. This comment, first of all, is about as benign as it gets. Dez Bryant said what he said because he was asked what he was asked. If you're asked, hey, how's Tony Romo throwing it? What are you going to say? No comment? Or worse, like, oh, I don't know, he looks still a little injured to me. He answered the question that was asked, and he said, oh, he's showing a few abs and he's slinging missiles. It's about as benign as it can possibly get. And by the way, Dak Prescott isn't so fragile as to get his feelings hurt about whether or not Tony Romo is throwing missiles. This entire team isn't as fragile as Stephen A. Smith would have you believe that they are. watch these videos. You can see them online. There's loops of Tony Romo giving Dak Prescott advice on whether or not blitzes will come again from the Eagles or not. He's supporting Dak all the way through. There's some articles put out by Mike Fisher on Scout talking about this team has unique strength and chemistry, buying each other dinners, rookie dinners that the entire team shows up to, rookie dinners that the entire team splits a $55,000 bill for, getting together voluntarily on their bye week to hang out. This team has something special going on. It's not fragile. It's not capable of being disrupted by a random comment. That being said, Tony Romo should replace Dak Prescott. He is the better quarterback. The numbers bear it out.
Let's get to that in a second. Let's get that in a second. Let's get that because I think that's
one at a time.
Yeah, let's take it one at a time. First of all, I agree with Will here. That's a good problem to have. They have two good quarterbacks, so that's not a problem even at all. The only issue is, remember, this is a team that needed a backup quarterback last year. It sunk their season. I actually thought that they were a Super Bowl contender going into last season. Then they lost their quarterback. They had no one who could even tread water. Now they got a backup. The question is the identity of the backup. That's really what it is, what we're dealing with here. And the history of the NFL tells you, as long as the guy who's in there is winning, it's going to be his job until he starts losing. That's just the way it works. It worked that way for everyone. Kurt Warner, I always bring up, even when he was a reigning MVP, everyone, or an MVP in the recent past, everyone. If you look at what Dez said when asked, do you think Romo should start? Me and him, we good, but I don't know. It's a team game. In other words, why did Dez say what he said? But other than the fact that he was asked a direct question, because he needs to know to let his guy know. It's a personal relationship thing. His guy, Tony Romo, you're my man. I got you. I'm going to let everyone know how great I think you are. That's very different than going out and calling for your guy or doing something in the press that starts an argument about who should be starting. When push came to shove and he was asked, he laid back, said it's a team game. That's code word for if we're winning, everyone knows how this goes. It's going to be Dak.
You know, I think you have to stop thinking about this Dallas Cowboys quarterback situation as though it's the New England Patriots revisited, as though it's Bledsoe and Brady revisited. It's possible we're looking at an unprecedented situation where a team has two quarterbacks that they can win with. And I would predict that come December, after the Dallas Cowboys have secured the NFC East, after their playoff path is clear, at the point at which you need to prepare for better defenses, the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs perhaps, better defenses like the Seattle Seahawks, they're going to need a quarterback to step in like a closer in baseball and be able to throw for 400 yards, and that will be Tony Romo. It's possible you see two quarterbacks for the Cowboys this year play very, very well, and at some point, Tony Romo will be on the field, and he will be the better quarterback for that situation.
Well, you know when he'd be on the field? You know when he would be on the field? I looked at this carefully. Given that they're 6-1 now, I said, well, what are you going to do if they're 6-1? Well, he buys himself some time. How much time? They're at the Browns. Let's call that a win. So you ain't replacing Dak, who, by the way, is
could be
third.
A trap game.
It could be, but he's third in the league in points added. Third in the league in points added. Like, it's not just in a mirage. He's a really good player. If they beat the Browns, whether or not it's a trap game, they'll be favored. Then they go to the Steelers. Then they get the Ravens at home. They'd have to lose 2 of those games. And Dak would have to play substandard in order for Romo to see the field at earliest Week 12 at home against Washington. That's the earliest, and only if they lose a couple of those games.
I think it goes the other way as well, Max. If they win enough, you see Tony Romo.
Oh.
I think both of y'all are getting a bit too scientific with this. That's predictable. Here's the deal. 3 previous seasons before last year, Dez Bryant had over 1,000 receiving yards. Tony Romo was his quarterback, and obviously that 12-4 season when the catch that wasn't a catch that should have been a catch in Green Bay is something everyone still laments in Cowboy Nation. The flip side is that Dez Bryant got hurt early last year. He missed, 7 games, but essentially it was damn near the entire season because he was never healthy, and on top of it all, Tony Romo wasn't there. That's why he only had 401 receiving yards. And then this year, he's only played 4 games this year, and he's at 263. So you have to look at the agenda per se. He's a wide receiver. To some degree, he can be divish. For lack of a better word, he wants the ball. He wants an opportunity to shine. And when you look at a guy like Tony Romo who would facilitate that, we can understand where Dez Bryant is coming from. The problem with it is that in the best interest of the team? And I'm only saying that, Will, to literally throw that question at you. In all seriousness, regardless of what you think about Romo, the way things are flowing right now, And there's something to be said for chemistry and cohesion and how things are flowing in the moment. Whether you say something or whatever the case may be, no matter how benign it may appear, as a reporter for over 20 years, I can assure you there have been situations that appeared so benign just because of a quote. And then we would find out later on that it wasn't absorbed that way. And when you're dealing with divas, you can never summarily dismiss something as benign. I'm here to tell you that right now, Will, because there's usually more to it than that. And that's why I think that you should take Dez's comments. Again, he wasn't being malicious or he didn't have malintent. But the bottom line is, was it wise for him to say something like that in this particular moment? You've got to at least ask that question because of the position he plays and the agenda that probably came attached to those words.
But you're making that analysis respectfully through 20 years of reporting and knowing some divas and seeing previous quarterback controversy situations. And what I'm telling you is this isn't the situations you've seen in the past. There's no evidence that Dak Prescott is a diva that gets his feelings hurt if Dez Bryant...
No, I'm talking about Dez. No, I'm talking about Dez.
Well, but Dez, we worried about Dez's feelings here? The question is whether or not Dez's comments disrupt the two quarterbacks playing for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm telling you, it's not going to disrupt it. There's no evidence that these two, Tony Romo and Dak Prescott, are in some kind of at their throats. One guy has to lose for the other guy to win type of competition.
Will. There's one job. I mean, it comes down to it. There's one quarterback job. They both are competitive guys. They can help each other all they want, but in the end, it does come down to that. They're going to have to make a decision who's the starter, who's the backup.
Max and Will, you got to consider this, too. Yesterday, Max, was it yesterday or the day before, we were talking about Terrell Owens, okay? Yesterday. We were talking about Terrell Owens in this situation. Not exactly, but Terrell Owens had issues with Tony Romo and ultimately Jason Witten because he felt... I'm sorry, Terrell Owens had issues with Romo and then Jason Witten because he ultimately felt like he was the odd man out. And they were prioritizing taking care of one another instead of looking out for him and making sure he got the ball and he was a game changer, so he wanted certain things. What I'm saying to you is when you're talking, anything that involves a wide receiver, Will, is a delicate situation that you can never just look at and summarily dismiss. Because if you're out on the field, yeah, Dak Prescott may not be fragile and he may not be phased by that, but who's to say that Dez Bryant won't go back out on the field and when he's not getting the ball enough, he can't potentially become problematic because he's not satisfied with what Dak is doing when it comes to him.
I think that's an interesting argument because I think it undercuts one of the arguments that many people make for keeping Dak in the game. The idea that Dak has the locker room. Well, if Dez is asking for Tony, if Dez wants Tony, and it's reasonable to assume Dez would perform better with Tony, that would kind of undercut the idea that the locker room is all for Dak. This debate boils down to this. On one hand, you got people like yourself arguing for chemistry and flowing, whatever that is. On the other hand, you got analysts saying Dak Prescott is leaving a lot on the field. Touchdown passes, 20-yard passes. And my rebuttal to you, and the reason why I'm in this camp, that Tony Romo would perform better with the Cowboys than Dak is because I don't believe a guy that's been in that locker room for 10 years, that's been playing with Jason Witten and Dez Bryant and all these guys for all these years, disrupts chemistry. I don't think he's lost that locker room. I think that locker room would be just happy with Tony Romo as well.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's the history of the league.
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that, but I will tell you, the brothers understand what flowing is, Will. I won't hold that against you.
I do too. It's a word you use so that you're never held accountable for actual facts.
All right.
All right.